This is former President of the United States, Barack Obama. In 2016, he endorsed Hillary Clinton to be his successor, and within that endorsement, he made a dubious claim.
I know how hard this job can be. That's why I know Hillary will be so good at it. In fact, I don't think there's ever been someone so qualified to hold this office.
Was Hillary Clinton qualified for the presidency? Sure. She was over the age of 35 and a natural-born citizen of the United States. And those are the only requirements, technically. Instead, Obama should have used the word experienced instead of qualified, but whatever. With that said, Clinton was definitely more qualified than Barack Obama when he ran in 2008, but is she the most qualified ever? Well, let's take a quick look. Hillary Clinton was a lawyer and taught criminal law at the University of Arkansas. She was the wife of an attorney general, governor, and president, was a US senator for 8 years, and despite sparse foreign policy experience, served as the United States Secretary of State for 4 years. But let's compare Clinton's experience to, say, George H.W. Bush. When Bush ran for president in 1988, he had served as a naval aviator who flew combat missions in World War II, was a 2-term congressman, was the United States ambassador to the United Nations, the director of Central Intelligence, and was a 2-term vice president under Ronald Reagan. There is no way that Clinton was more qualified than George Bush, not by a long shot, but Obama said it anyway.
I can say with confidence, there has never been a man or a woman, not me, not Bill, nobody, more qualified than Hillary Clinton to serve as President of the United States of America.
To be fair, just about anybody would have been more qualified than Barack Obama to be president, but whatever. When Bill Clinton ran back in 1992, he was the governor of a state, which means that he had executive experience, which some would argue is more relevant than legislative experience. But President Obama wasn't the only one spinning Hillary in this way. So did his wife, Michelle.
I am here tonight because in this election, there is only one person who I trust with that responsibility. Only one person who I believe is truly qualified to be President of the United States, and that is our friend, Hillary Clinton.
But what about the 2020 election and the Democratic nominee, Joe Biden? He was in the Senate for 37 years and was the vice president under Obama for 8. And that's a lot of experience, right?
Now, Joe is not perfect, and he'd be the first to tell you that. But there is no perfect candidate.
So, we went from Hillary Rodham Clinton, the most truly qualified candidate ever, to no one's perfect Joe Biden. Great job, Democrats. And the thing is, just based on the amount of experience, Joe Biden has a lot of it. And even though it would have been more appropriate for Joe, they can't use that whole most qualified candidate ever line again because they wasted it on Hillary. So instead, they're trying to sell old Joe as empathetic.
Everyone has a story about Joe's caring and empathy.
That compassion, that empathy is part of his character.
Empathy.
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 Joe Biden's empathy.
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 Joe Biden's empathy is genuine. You can feel it.
Empathy.
Okay, empathy isn't a bad trait to have, but just because you can vicariously experience the feelings of others, that doesn't necessarily make you a good leader.
And he will govern as someone who's lived a life that the rest of us can recognize. When he was a kid, Joe's father lost his job.
Wow, my dad once lost his job too.
When he was a young senator, Joe lost his wife and his baby daughter. And when he was vice president, he lost his beloved son.
Wow, Joe Biden has experienced personal loss. He's just like everyone else. Make him the president.
He will reach out and hear what other people have to say.
He'll listen.
I know Joe because he listens.
Listening to the people.
An ability to listen.
Time and again, I've seen him stop everything and listen, really listen.
He talked to me for the next half hour.
His real warmth and kindness.
Sympathetic listening.
And he listens.
I'll never forget how Joe took the time to offer me words of comfort as my father lay in hospice.
Compassionate.
Again, that's all well and good, Michelle, but What about policy?
We want to tell you what kind of president our dad will be. He'll never let you down.
Uh-huh.
He'll make your grandkids feel that what they've got to say matters.
What?
He'll be the best friend you've ever had.
Yeah, he might even take you to China on Air Force Two. Such a good friend. Okay, so clearly the Democrats don't have a lot that they can work with. One of Biden's most important signature pieces of legislation, the 1994 crime bill, wasn't mentioned even once during the Democratic National Convention. I mean, Joe Biden used to be proud of this legislation, back when Democrats were tough on crime. The crime bill imposed tougher prison sentences on the federal level and added to so-called mass incarceration. During his 2008 campaign for president, Joe called the 1994 crime bill the Biden crime law, and bragged that if states kept violent offenders behind bars for at least 85% of their sentence, that the federal government would provide funds to build more prisons. But this is 2020, and believe it or not, the word crime was only mentioned twice during the entire 4 days of the DNC. And even though there has been violence, looting, rioting, and arson happening in multiple cities since late May, none of it was addressed during the DNC, at all. Joe Biden didn't condemn or even address any of it until August 31st. You'd think that the civil unrest would have surely affected tons of people in a negative way, but Biden didn't address it for an entire 3 months. So much for that empathy, huh, Joe? Here's VP Biden addressing the death of Jay Danielson, a right-wing protester who was murdered in Portland.
I think what happened in Portland, where one of the Trump guys riding along in vans inciting response is shooting rubber bullets, I guess, or paintballs. Apparently there was someone shot by someone in the crowd with a bullet, killed. I think that person should meet the legal requirements that whatever that calls for. Should be investigated, and it should follow through on what needs to be done. Let the judicial system work.
Typical Joe Biden, he can't even get basic facts straight. So let's break this down.
What happened in Portland, where one of the Trump guys.
Oh, he was one of those Trump guys. Not a victim, not a human being, not an American, a Trump guy. No, not divisive at all.
One of the Trump guys riding along in vans inciting response.
Inciting response? I mean, isn't that kind of the point of a protest? But whatever. That Trump guy was asking for it.
Shooting rubber bullets, I guess, or paintballs.
Yes, there were some Trump supporters shooting paintballs at other protesters. Stop doing that, by the way. It's not helpful. But rubber bullets? No, not even close, Joe.
Apparently there was someone shot by someone in the crowd with a bullet, killed.
There wasn't a crowd. It was a man who walked up to another man without provocation and killed him.
I think that person should meet the legal requirements that whatever that calls for.
In summary, Biden is suggesting that the Trump guy was out provoking protesters and that the person who shot him may have had justification to take the victim's life. I'm not seeing a lot of that world-famous Joe Biden empathy here.
Should be investigated, and it should follow through on what needs to be done.
Guys, it needs to be thoroughly investigated. We don't need to jump to any conclusions. But when it comes to the Jacob Blake shooting, Biden knows exactly what needs to happen.
Last week, your running mate, Senator Harris, said that the officer who shot Jacob Blake, based on what she has seen, should be charged. Do you agree with her?
I think we should let the judicial system work its way. I do think there's a minimum need to be charged, the officers.
So no thorough investigation, no due process? I mean, he and Harris saw the video, right? Case closed. Man, Joe Biden is going to be the best president ever. Now, Joe Biden, the most empathetic presidential candidate ever, went to Kenosha, Wisconsin to listen to a bunch of hand-picked Kenosans with pre-screened questions.
I'm just gonna be honest, Mr. Biden. I was told to go off this paper, but I can't.
Shh, you're saying the quiet part out loud, lady. Anyway, at the beginning of that event, a staff member made an important announcement.
I just want to remind everyone that this event has been set up to adhere to social distancing guidelines.
Social distancing guidelines that Joe Biden quickly ignored.
Violating social distancing here, walking up, I guess I am.
Then 10 minutes later, he continued to do it. God bless him.
The tax cut for the top 1/10 of 1%, which is $1,350 billion, has done nothing to help anybody.
We talked about this, Joe. You said you were going to give people their personal space. Whatever. Anyway, the best part of the community meeting was when Joe Biden decided to pander to the congregation.
We gotta, for example, why in God's name don't we teach history in history classes?
I swear I am not taking this clip out of context.
A black man invented the light bulb, not a white guy named Edison. Okay?
As you may know from one of my previous videos, Joe Biden is very, very wrong. I know you're shocked. As you probably know from history class, Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. What you might not know is that Lewis Latimer patented a design that improved on the light bulb by using a carbon filament. And Latimer was a really smart man who not only worked for Edison, but also Alexander Graham Bell. So I think we can guess Joe's answer when you ask him who invented the telephone.
Anybody know these things? We act because we don't teach them. We gotta give people facts.
Anyway, that's it for now. Be sure to pick up a limited edition Asteroid 2020 t-shirt while you still can, because even a space rock is a better candidate than Joe Biden. A special thanks to Poofy for her help with this week's video. Follow her at Saint Sundaday on Twitter and Parler. She's worth following despite being a woman. And follow me on both platforms too at Don't Walk Run. Thank you so much for watching, sharing, and hitting that like button. Be sure that you're still subscribed to the channel. And as always, hope to see you next time.